Well, today marks 56 years since bullets were fired in Memphis, taking the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Decades later, his legacy remains with so many people and organizations working to keep that dream alive. Thanks for sticking with us at 4:30 on this Thursday. I'm Candace Gibson.
And I'm Erin LeBeau. Dr. King was just 39 years old when his life was taken, but in that short time, he created a movement with a mission that still resonates to this very day. Dr. King was in Memphis in 1968 to support black sanitation workers striking. On April 3rd, he gave his famous "I've been to the mountaintop" speech. Now, the next day, King was gunned down on the second floor balcony of the Lorraine Hotel or Motel. Now, the motel now home to the Civil Rights Museum, where King's family gathered today speaking about his ongoing fight for racial equality.
In his last book, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community? And I think that all of us can agree that we've seen our fair share of chaos. And it's now time for us to not only make real the dream, but to come together in community.
Our own Marvin Scott spent years covering Dr. King during the civil rights era, even covering his funeral as well. You were there after the assassination from inside the funeral home. And Marvin joins us right now.
Well, Candace, Ernie, I was there about 12 hours after Dr. King was shot. And I arrived outside the Lorraine Motel at a time, it was about dawn. The light was peering through the clouds after a very dark night. And there were stone-faced police officers there holding back crowds of people, members of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And it was somewhat of a hushed silence over the whole scene. It was so surreal. I say a hushed silence, but I could almost hear the people crying. And as they stared up at their eyes up on the balcony to room 306, where he had just left the room, heading to dinner and a speech at a Mason, and that was where he made his remarks about how he had seen the mountaintop. The Reverend Jesse Jackson, he was the young spokesperson for the King family at that time. And he came out and he talked about, he said, I held him, I cradled him in my arms. And he talked about the moments he was with him before, and he was full of so much energy. And then suddenly that one single shot, it hit him in the lower cheek. And it came from 200 yards away at a rooming house, Bessie Brewer's rooming house. And after the police left, I managed to get myself inside, walking through the creaky steps and the paint peeling from the walls. And I walked into the bathroom where James Earl Ray took his shot, and I put my foot, one foot on the tub, one foot on the toilet, and looked out the window, and I realized you didn't have to be a sharpshooter from 200 yards away. He was the target. He was able to zero in on that.
Marvin, let's go to before the assassination, because you spent quite some time covering King before.
I was with him in Mississippi 2 years earlier. It was a march against fear that was organized.
You're the one on the left, right there?
Skinny kid there.
That young, handsome man.
James Earl Ray had organized this march against fear, and he was gunned down in Hernando, Mississippi. And he was wounded. He survived. But the leaders of the civil rights movement were determined to carry on that march. And Martin Luther King was there, Jim Farmer, Floyd McKissick. They led the march, and that's where I saw Dr. King.
And I'm curious about the sound. We have you actually interviewing Dr.
Well, I have. It's interesting because I asked him about the shooting of James Earl, about Meredith, and he said a shooting like that would only strengthen the resolve of the civil rights movement. Here's a soundbite from 1966.
I think it is indicative of the fact that we still live in a morally inclement climate filled with torrents of hatred and jostling winds of violence. And I think many levels of our society must take responsibility for this.
Marvin, I want you to touch on the fact that you said the night before, King said something very important.
It was almost like he was projecting his own death. He was speaking, and I have the exact quote. He said, "I've seen the promised land. I might not get there with you. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man.
Yeah, his
24
famous-
hours later, Martin Luther King was dead.
His famous mountaintop speech.
That was the mountaintop
Yeah.
speech, and yeah, he was quite the orator. He knew how, he had a commanding way with his speech, and he was such a moderating voice.
Yes, he was. Marvin, thank you. Appreciate your insight.
Candace, Aaron, good to be with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, same.